Welcome to AP Biology. Today I want to go over some vocabulary for the meiosis unit. A gene is a segment of DNA that codes for a trait. So here is a chromosome. It's a molecule of DNA. On that molecule of DNA, there are probably thousands of genes. A gene is just a segment of DNA that codes for some trait. So if you looked more closely at this, you might be able to see the nucleotides, the A's, C's, G's, and T's. So a locus, you'll see that term sometimes, that's a location of a gene on a chromosome. So we might look at this locus compared to this one, or loci for plural. A chromosome is a molecule of DNA. I mentioned that last time. Chromosomes are paired in somatic cells or in body cells, so they're not paired in gametes, but for humans, we are diploid organisms, which means that we have a full set of DNA from mom and a full set of DNA from dad. And so for anyone with two full sets of DNA, we have paired chromosomes. So we have to define those chromosomes. Homologous chromosomes, also called homologs. Okay, so this is a pair of homologous chromosomes. Maybe this one came from mom, and maybe this one came from dad. And so these are not going to be exactly identical because mom and dad are not exactly identical. So these are your chromosomes, but originally they came from, that one was mom's donation and this one was dad's donation. So maybe right here you have a gene for freckles that you got from mom. And from dad, let's change colors here. From dad, maybe you got the recessive, no freckles. And so each of these, the big F, little f, those are the gene which codes for the melanin deposits in the skin. So this is the gene for like a kind of a type of skin color, right? And so the alleles would be the version or the variation of the gene. So if gene is the skin coloration, meaning do you have freckles or not, the allele would be, yeah, I have freckles, or no, I don't have freckles, right? Big F or little f. So homologous chromosomes are going to have the same genes, but they're going to have different alleles. That's supposed to say different alleles. So maybe, let's get another color. Maybe this one codes for you being tall, and maybe this one codes for you being short. The gene is how tall you're going to be. It codes for height. And the alleles would be, are you going to be tall or short? That's the variation. So you might notice that I have a little bit more on this slide. So these are homologous chromosomes, but they are unduplicated. So this is what they might look like in anaphase as they're being pulled apart, or in telophase before they unwind. These chromosomes, though, are duplicated, right? You can see this, the kinetochore with the two pieces. So these are duplicated. So I need to tell you the difference between sister chromatids and homologous chromosomes. So a sister chromatid is half of a duplicated chromosome. So half of duplicated chromosome. So the way I just defined it, I would say there are no chromatids over here. So you might find some videos that talk about this being, well, this would be considered one chromosome, right? One unduplicated chromosome. Some videos will say that's a chromatid. I don't know if I want you to worry too much about that. I would say it's no chromatids if you define a chromatid as a half of a duplicated chromosome. But in any event, what I do want you to know, right here, this is a sister chromatid compared to this one, right? So sister chromatids are going to be identical, at least in the beginning of meiosis. The reason that they're identical is a unit that we're going to do soon on DNA replication. So what you have is a DNA molecule that might look like this. And so if you look at this chromosome, it's really tightly coiled, but if it all became uncoiled, and you could see it. You would see the double helix like this. And so the way it duplicates is it gets separated out. There's an enzyme called helicase, blah, blah, blah. And each side serves as a template for the other. And so I'm not going to do too much on this now. Let me just say that this is a topic that we'll talk about in the future. And anyway, what you end up is having two completely identical molecules, and they're still going to be connected here, though, at the kinetochore, at the centromere. And so sister chromatids are identical until some funky things happen in meiosis. But homologous chromosomes are not identical, right? So this would be a pair of homologous chromosomes, one from mom and one from dad. And this would also be a pair of homologous chromosomes, one from mom and one from dad. It's just that these are duplicated, whereas these are unduplicated, right? These have not gone through the synthesis phase yet, and these already have gone through the synthesis phase. So it's really important that you know the difference between homologous chromosomes and sister chromatids. So homologous chromosomes are pairs, and they're not identical. Sister chromatids are identical, unless some funky stuff has happened to them already. All right, so chromosomes in a homologous pair are the same length and the same shape. They carry the same genes, but they're going to carry different alleles. So again, if this codes for tall height, this might code for short height. These would both be tall because they're identical, right? These would both be short because they're identical. If this one codes for blue eyes, maybe, this one codes for brown eyes. So maybe you got the blue-eyed allele from dad and the brown-eyed allele from mom. One more, so a gene, let me define that too. A gene is a piece of DNA that codes for a trait, maybe eye color. An allele is that variation. Is it blue or is it brown? So these are duplicated chromosomes because you can see they have sister chromatids. And these are homologous chromosomes because this one is not exactly the same as this one. Non-sister chromatids are also something that you need to know. So non-sister chromatids would be one of the individual little chromatids, but they would be one from each homologous pair. So non-sister chromatids are going to be not identical. Again, if this one codes for blue eyes, maybe that one would code for brown eyes. Human body cells have two sets of chromosomes for a total of 46 chromosomes, whether they're duplicated or not. So you can count through these, and you'll count 23 pairs or 46 chromosomes. So you can say your diploid or 2n number is 46. You get one set of 23 chromosomes from your dad and the other set of 23 chromosomes from your mom. So an egg would have 23 chromosomes, and a sperm would have 23 chromosomes, but you are diploid. You would have 46 chromosomes. So we would call these haploid. Haploid cells have no homologous chromosomes, no pairs. Chromosomes. But the diploid one would have homologous pairs, right? Because you get one set from your mom and one set from your dad. This fake organism here, this has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We would say he's a 2n of 6, and that means mom must have contributed 3 chromosomes and dad must have contributed 3 chromosomes. So haploid of 3, diploid of 6. So this is one set of chromosomes. We're going to call it haploid, and we're going to call it N. And this is human, so we'll say that N is 23. And this is also one set of chromosomes. Maybe this came from, if this one came from mom in the egg, maybe this one came from dad. And we're also going to call that haploid, or N is 23 in humans. And so this is a haploid set of chromosomes. Haploid plus haploid equals diploid. A better name for haploid is really monoploid, but no one uses that term, very sadly. So an egg is haploid. For humans, N is 23. A sperm is haploid. Again, N is 23. And an adorable child is diploid. 2N equals 46. So you can see they come in pairs, like this. And for humans, again, 46. So for humans, the diploid number is 46. If you're a koala bear, your 2N number is 16, I think. That means koala bear sperm are going to be N equals 8. If you're a mouse, your 2N number is 40. And that means the sperm and the egg would be a haploid number of 20. So notice that the total number of chromosomes is different in different species, but for each of these, we're talking about sexually reproducing organisms. So they have diploid for the adults, and they have the sperm and the egg are haploid. So we're still looking at the numbers 2N versus N, right? But it's the number of chromosomes that change. The number of sets really isn't changing. 2 sets versus 1 set. So N, the ploidy, is really the set. How many sets do you have? You have 1 full set from mom, a set of 23 if you're human, N equals 23, and 1 full set from dad.